First of all, I know Todd was raised in that town that we see portrayed in the film, and that the main character is based on a real life person. So, how was that connection for you and that origin of deciding to make a film about him?
Um, I always knew I wanted to make a film about him. I actually wrote a Mr. Pat character in my first film, Edge of 17, that wound up. Part of the problem is that we couldn't find the right person to play him. It takes a very special actor to pull that character off, and so the part wound up getting cut. So that, I mean, that was 20 years ago. So all of this time, I always knew that I wanted to pay homage to Mr. Pat, like in a bigger way, because he was a real role model for me growing up. He was the person that, like, I never felt like I fit into my hometown, back then. It's changed a lot over the years, but it was a place that was very conservative back in the day, and Pat was the opposite of that. He just was like this bright, shining peacock, and he gave me the courage to be, to know that it was like okay to be different, and so all these years I knew that when the time was right, I was going to like make my Mr. Pat film.
And in that sense, I obviously understand why you say that this is such a complex role to play. And I wanted to ask Mr. Udo about that approach, because it's a very nostalgic and melancholic role, but also it's very fun, extrovert, and inspiring. So how was that approach to the role?
Well, Todd was Mr. Todd, and I became Mr. Todd. And I read the script, and after have made, I'm sure you have seen them, Bacurau and The Painted Bird. When I got the script from Todd for Swan Song, I read it and liked it. So I read it again, and then we were speaking, and it was for me on the phone. It was for me after the playing always the evil gangster and vampire. It was a moment I wanted to play that role, but I didn't want to play that role. I wanted to become that role. It's like with no aggression, with no idea of history. And then Todd came to visit me, and we talked, and I liked him. That's for me the important thing. If I have a director who I don't like, I never make the movie in my life. So that's not going to happen. And then he came again, and we did a little crowdfunding and got some money. He got some money. And then we went there. I mean, I went there. He was there. I went there to, Sandusky, and I had told him that I would like the shooting, like in the script. The first thing I wanted to play the old man retired in a strange home, folding little napkins and giving up. The only pleasure was to smoke a more cigar, which he was hiding in front of the nurse. And so then, when I went there first, I met people. I went also to places, to bars where the real Pat used to go. And I talked to friends. They talked to me. They told me how he behaved and all these little movements. So I liked that. I did this on my own. And I walked a lot around the town on my own to see, and was sitting there and have a drink. And I went to the second-hand store, which later I was shooting. So I discovered it, and I realized, and I knew from Todd that he was a kind of a legend in this little town, Pat. And because he was different, and nobody was aggressive to him. And then we did the script. We did scene by scene, and it was a very low budget film, but not low budget in quality. Uh, but I had an amazing time doing the film and meeting all Todd's friends and his parents and brother and all that. So I became part of the family there, and I just became Pat. And I became this man who was happy that he got all of a sudden a green suit as a gift, and he becomes really alive again. He's only older, but he goes to the memory lane. That's how I handled the film. And I always say all day long today, it was a non-acting film. I was not acting. I wanted to be like that. I understood the script was very clear, and I became Pat. And Pat had certain things, but I didn't want to imitate Pat. I just became Pat. I was Pat for not the Pat, the real Pat, but I was also Pat, another Pat.
Something I really love about the film is how it feels so personal, and in that sense that the character is remembering his past and some wounds that he has. But at the same time, it's like Todd earlier said about the changes, not only in the town, but in the sense of the gay community and the treatment and so forth. So how was that process to put together those two things in one single 90 minutes?
Well, I didn't want, my town has changed so much over the years. Like I just didn't want to have being gay being the conflict in the story, like I didn't want that to be a conflict. Like I want, there's been a lot of films that dealt with gay subject matter where that has been a conflict, including films that I have made. But I wanted to kind of go beyond that and, deal more with like, aging and having having outlived all your friends and outlived your your partner and what that's like and having this thing that you love to do. Pat to me was like a artist with his hands, and it's like once and how you have this thing that maybe you loved and then you lose it, and so and to me it was about rediscovering that, him rediscovering life again after having been sort of like given up on life, so that was more the conflict, um and yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Udo, what do you think this film? I have seen you in recent films like The Puppet Master, for example, or Iron Sky. But this one to me was my favorite of your recent roles. So, what do you think it represents in your career, especially in these last few years?
Well, in my career, now Todd shouldn't hear that. Todd, hold your hands on your ears,
Okay.
because this film is the most important film. And I tell you why. It is not a story, or it is like, for me, internet knows everything about me. They know more than I do. That I made 250 films, and I'm a lucky actor who worked with the best directors in the world. Um, but this is the first time in a long time where it's all about me. And that is a difference. When I'm in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, or Armageddon, I have one or two scenes, everybody says, that is, oh, that is strong. But now, since Dracula and Frankenstein, where I was the leading man, it's the first film where I have the absolute lead. It's about me. Not about Udo Kier. It's about a character. And that is so important for me because I have a few friends have seen it, the film, very good friends. I wouldn't show it to anybody else. And they said, Udo, that is your best film you ever did. We have never seen you like that. And I will explain you. You're the first of all the journalists today. I will explain why. Because there is a real, that's why it seems so real and people get sad and they laugh and cry, because it's about a real person. And that person goes back in the past after a while. And even in a club, thinking I have to perform and even take something strange, you want to be the star, something on your head. You have seen the film, we don't have to talk about what it is. And that's why it's a person, it's the film is about me. The film is about an old man folding little paper towels till the end. And that's why this film is so important. Of course, when I work with Gus van Sant or Lars von Trier, that's important. But I never had a role, the main role. That is the main role. And then having great partners, like Linda Evans and Jennifer Coolidge. So it was and nice people from the first day till the goodbye. So that's why this film is, for me, after 20 years maybe, the most important film. And that's it.
Thank you for that. And
Everything. Eric, I told you everything.
thank you. I think my last question would be about, I noticed, for example, in the end credits that it is dedicated to the victims of AIDS. And of course, I won't spoil it, but that whole speech at the end is very inspiring for younger gay men. So in that sense, what was that, how important was for you to communicate that inspiring side of in this film?
Even in my small town, AIDS really hit the town hard and really decimated the community, including many, of Pat's friends and Pat's world. And so, yeah, I wanted to, there's this whole almost like lost generation of the community that a big part of it was wiped out, and that there's a history there that I hope people don't forget, that the younger generation doesn't forget what their older generation went through to help pave the way, kind of thing.